Hello, hello, Jordan Chariton live. Status Coup. It is June 27th, 2023, right here in the United Corporations of America. Hope everybody is having an okay week so far in these tough times. A lot going on. I'll wait for more people to trickle in to remind folks about us being back on the ground this week. So that's exciting. More, I'd say, more buzz juice around the 2024 election. So we'll get to that. Also going to have an activist, part of Climate Defiance, which is a climate activist group that has been literally shutting down fundraisers, speeches of Democratic Party officials and other hack corporate politicians who are not doing anything about the climate inferno. So earlier today, they shut down a fundraiser Chuck Schumer was doing. So we'll have video of that and then have one of the activists on. Then we got some Flint news. So a smorgasbord of content today that you probably won't see on other channels. Please smash that like button. Please share this live stream. The more people that press like, the more people that will see this live stream. So we'll have that guest on probably in 20 minutes. Then we'll have the Flint guest after the climate guest. So a lot to get to. I am tired again because my lovely daughter just doesn't want to sleep. So bear with me if I mumble a little bit. It's because I don't have a lot of brain cells. Thank you for the first super chat from Mike, $5. Really appreciate it. Let me also give some shout outs. We just launched a fundraising page for our next on the ground trip for Cop City. Tina and John Farina are going to be headed back to cover another week of action against Cop City in Georgia. They'll be on the ground there tomorrow through the weekend. So we are specifically fundraising for this trip. So definitely go to the page, statuscoup.com/trip funding. We're trying to raise $6,000 this week to offset the costs of this reporting trip. So you could go to the page. We got some of the reporting from Tina's previous trip to Georgia, as well as the ways you could donate. So far, we've raised $260. So obviously going to have to raise a lot more to get the $6,000. So thank you to those who have already donated and hopefully others. If you got a decision today, don't super chat, drop it in the fundraiser. Colin has put the link in the description. And leave your donation in the fundraising page. We would love to offset the costs for the trip, which between Tina, John, flights, hotels, car, food, probably going to be around $4,000 to $5,000, possibly $6,000 if they stay a few days longer. We won't know if they're staying any longer until we see what's happening on the ground. So I'll remind you of this a little bit later once we get more people watching. So let's get right to it. Obviously, we are far, far away from any primaries. We're far, far away from the general election. But I would say, we're hitting July. First primary will be in 6 months. Obviously, we know that at the moment, even with all these indictments with Donald Trump, possibly a third and fourth indictment coming, he is still dominating polls on the Republican side. We know on the Democratic side, the Democratic Party, the DNC have just outwardly rigged the process. They have canceled democracy, saying we will not have a primary, we will not have debates. Regardless, Marianne Williamson and RFK have been polling RFK anywhere between 15 and 20%, and Marianne Williamson anywhere between 7 to 12%. The Real Clear Politics averages for RFK Jr. is 14%. Marianne Williamson, I believe, was 8%, if my memory serves me correct. And Cornel West just was in his first poll. Obviously, he's not the official Green Party candidate yet, but in the first poll for Cornel West, he was at 6%. So, it's anybody's game right now. But one thing that I have felt, and the data shows, is if we have a Trump-Biden rematch, which if Biden can make it to the general, I don't mean like be alive, but just make it. I don't need to I'm not breaking any news when sharing he's not at his best, shall we say. If he will make it, these would be other than Hillary versus Trump 2016, these would be the two most unpopular candidates ever. Right now, Biden versus Trump, their favorability ratings are both polling at 31% unfavorable. 31% favorable. I think Biden was at 50 something percent unfavorable. Same with Trump. So CNN, who, along with MSNBC, have labeled all of these spoiler candidates. Marianne is a spoiler candidate. RFK is a spoiler candidate. Well, their pollster wrote a piece that I found interesting saying if it's Biden and Trump rematch, they could open the door for a third party to actually compete. Now, I'm not going to, oversell it here. I'm not going to try lie to the audience for clicks. It is obviously a very, very uphill climb for Cornel West to win the presidency or any third party candidate. However, Ross Perot in 1992, he got 19% as an independent. Jill Stein got she got 1%. But I think Cornel West, if he runs a good campaign, could potentially get some of the highest numbers we've ever seen for a third-party candidate based on his name brand recognition, his appeal to progressives. I think he could appeal to even some conservatives. So it remains to be seen, folks, particularly if he is blessed with running against Trump and Biden, who, other than lice, the media, can you think of anything other than those two entities that are more unpopular? I really can't. So let's take a look at this CNN article. We won't read the whole thing, but there's a lot of things in here and a lot of data that tell me Cornel West could put a dent in it, assuming he wins the Green Party nomination. All right, let's take a look. Hold on. This is from CNN's Harry Enton. Biden versus Trump, the 2024 race, a historic numbers of Americans don't want. You can say that again. 24 presidential primaries are in full swing. President Joe Biden is the overwhelming favorite for the Democratic nomination. Ex-President Trump remains the clear frontrunner for the Republican nod. This puts a lot of Americans in a position they do not want to be. A historically large share of them do not like either at this point. CNN SSSR poll from earlier this month found that more Americans viewed neither Biden nor Trump favorably than those who held favorable views of either man. A plurality, 36%, viewed neither candidate favorably, while 33% had a favorable view of Trump, 32% for Biden. Constraining ourselves to registered voters, 31% viewed neither Biden nor Trump favorably. And frankly, I mean, that number could get worse for both, particularly if Trump gets indicted for a third or fourth time. We're on the heels potentially of a massive UPS strike, which I just interviewed a former UPS worker. We're going to have that on the channel probably tonight. But a UPS strike could really do a number on the economy, which obviously Biden would be blamed for. So these favorability numbers could go down further from 31%. To put that in perspective, consider the end of the 2016 presidential election. That race between Trump and Hillary, the benchmark election for candidate unlikability. It is the only one on record in which both candidates were disliked by more Americans than liked on election day. The final pre-election CNN poll of that campaign found that 16% of registered voters held an unfavorable view of both Trump and Clinton. When you add in those who were neutral or didn't have an opinion, 19% viewed neither nominee favorably. If the numbers we're seeing now in CNN polling continue through the election, more Americans will dislike both major party nominees for president than ever before. I think that's important, Colin, if you have the graph I had you make earlier. If Biden is going to win re-election, he's got to keep Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, what they call the blue wall. If you look at it, 2020, he only won Wisconsin by a little over 20,000 votes. Pennsylvania, 80,555. Michigan, 154,000. Jill Stein, 4 years before, she got more votes than Biden won by in Wisconsin. Pennsylvania, she got almost 49,000 votes. Michigan, she got 50,000 votes. So I think if Cornel West runs, if he's the Green Party nominee, no disrespect to Jill Stein, who I have a lot of respect for, he's just a different kind of candidate. And we're at a much different kind of time, because Donald Trump 2016 compared to Donald Trump 2024, I would say among independents, I mean, he's probably cut his support in half, if not more, among independents who might lean or consider more a third party candidate this go around than 2016. A lot of Democrats who voted for Biden, remember in 2020, did not vote for Biden for Biden. They were going to vote for a paper bag over Donald Trump. Could a chunk of those Democrats go for Cornel West or a third party candidate, including a lot of Bernie voters who voted for Bernie and then held their nose and voted for Biden. So I think you could have both among independents and Democratic voters a significant slice that vote for a third party candidate, particularly once we're in general election debate season. If it's Trump, he will be 4 times indicted. At that point, he'll probably be in at least one of the trials against him. If it's Biden, you could have a reeling economy at that point, given potential UPS strike and other things. And also, I mean, all you got to do is watch every speech, every month, every year, he's losing steam. I'm not diagnosing him with anything, but everybody has eyes. And from now to September or October of next year, when the next debate is, that's a lifetime in terms of cognitive functioning if somebody's already struggling. So I think, listen, crazier things have happened. Donald Trump became president in 2016. Donald Trump cleaned the floor with the Republican Party, where nobody thought Donald Trump had a chance in hell to win the nomination. So I'm trying to balance two things, not sell you a bill of goods. I'm not going to try and, off the back of Cornel West, try and sensationalize or juice up his chances to get clicks. You got to be realistic. It's very unlikely a third party candidate this time could win the presidency, but I don't think it's unlikely that he could do better than any third party candidate has ever done. I do not think that's unlikely. I think if a few balls bounce a certain way, if he runs a smart campaign, if he's actually willing, as I say, to go for the political jugular, I just think we're in a different time from 1992 when Ross Perot got 19%. I think we're in a far, far galaxy away from 2016. 2020 was different because it was the beginning and worst of COVID. So I think it's kind of the wild, wild west right now. Now, all of this is different if it's Biden versus DeSantis. If it's Biden versus DeSantis, it pains me to say it because I think DeSantis is equally, if not more, dangerous than Trump. But I think DeSantis would beat Biden as currently constituted. And I don't think a third party candidate would play that much into it because DeSantis' unfavorability, I mean, there's still time, is not where Trump and Biden's is. As more voters get to know DeSantis, could it go up? And could he be one of the least popular presidential candidates with Trump and Biden? Maybe, but right now that's not the case. So it's very, very interesting. I want to read a little bit more. If you go down, Colin, to we'll start here. Neither Trump nor Biden are anywhere near positive territory this cycle, and we're not talking about one outlier poll. The average of all polling so far indicates that both men have favorable ratings below 40%, with unfavorable ratings into the mid-50s. CNN's May polls showed that 23% of voters didn't hold a favorable view of either candidate, in each of Quinnipiac's ratings into the mid-50s. CNN's May poll showed that 23% of voters didn't hold a favorable view of either candidate in each of Quinnipiac University's last 3 presidential polls among registered voters. Somewhere between 22% and 28% of the electorate viewed neither candidate favorably. The average was 24%. The closest anyone came to having a favorable rating above an unfavorable rating was Biden in Quinnipiac's June poll, His favorable was 42%, unfavorable 54%. So what happens if Biden and Trump continue to be this unpopular? Maybe primary voters decide they want to nominate someone else for president. But Biden doesn't have a primary competitor with a favorable rating as close to his among Democrats. I would argue part of that is they don't get any coverage for the mainstream media. There's a mainstream media blackout of both Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. Trump's most formidable challenger at this point, DeSantis, also has a nut and favorable rating among the general electorate. If Biden and Trump make it to the general election with such low ratings, it could open the door for a third-party candidate. Ross Perot's 1992 independent bid for the White House got major tailwinds early in the election cycle because both Democratic challenger Bill Clinton and Republican incumbent George H.W. Bush had low favorability ratings. Bill Clinton's favorable rating in 1992 improved after winning his party nomination. Likewise, Hillary and Trump's low favorable ratings in 2016 allowed the cumulative share of the vote outside the two major parties to eclipse 5% for the only time in the past 25 years. Why I think this is important, and keep smashing that like button, keep sharing this live stream. There's a few things that are different. First off, this ain't me saying it, it's CNN saying it. But why I think this is important, we're just in a significantly different period than 2016 and 2020 in terms of exposure for a third-party candidate. You know, Cornel West, if he wins the Green Party nomination, you know, he could go on Joe Rogan, presumably more than once. You got shows like Breaking Points with over 1 million views. You have major podcasts that are not as married to Democratic Party or Republican Party. You have obviously digital media and different platforms like TikTok, Twitter, social media. So, of course, the normie baby boomer types, they're going to probably gravitate more towards a traditional Biden or Trump. But independents, more independents lean, you know, they lean liberal or lean conservative, but polls show they are open to an actual third-party candidate. Then you have younger people who are fleeing Joe Biden at this point. Then you have black voters. His numbers are down among black voters. Obviously, Cornel West would be a strong black candidate. And at the end of the day, it's easier said than done. I think a candidate like Cornel West, who talks like a laser about poverty, he's not going to get 100 million non-voters to come out. Could he get a couple million people who don't traditionally vote to come out? So again, I don't, curb your enthusiasm, my favorite show. We're not trying to sell you Cornel West has a chance to win the presidency at this point. I think he has a legitimate chance, not just to pull away votes from Joe Biden, as the media is trying to scaremonger about with the spoiler narrative. I think he's got a legitimate chance to get record numbers for a third-party candidate. With all due respect to Ross Perot, Cornel West is a little more charismatic than Ross Perot. And you have the added element. The economy might have a few more blows before the next general election. And one of those I want to talk about, this is just a short snippet. I just interviewed a UPS worker, Teamsters, who represents the UPS workers. 97% of UPS workers just voted to authorize a strike. UPS has until August to offer an actual fair contract that these people could live off of. From the counter proposal UPS just sent, I'm not so hopeful that they're going to get a legitimate contract, which means you could have the biggest strike in decades. There's 320,000 UPS workers in this country. If they go on strike for a week, it could do a number on the economy. If they go on strike for a month, it could be a machete to the economy. Play that clip with a former UPS worker who was wrongfully fired, Ben Douglas. I mean, we know the Republicans and we also know the Democrats kind of give, virtue signals that they support labor, but there's only a handful that actually show up on the picket lines. Do you expect any support if there's a UPS strike from the Democratic Party? Real support, not, tweeting to support you while taking money from the union busters.
No, I mean, I think Joe Biden showed his true hand when he broke or averted a potential rail strike. And, the rail workers were fighting for the most basic standards, paid sick days so that they could go to the doctor, so that they, could keep their job and take care of their bodies. And even that was too much for the railroad companies. And Joe Biden, as well as Congress, and including even progressive Congress people like, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jamal Bowman and, progressive Democrats in the squad, many of them supported either openly or more underhandedly stopping the strike. And if we go back to history, I think that we will find that only working people organizing in their own name and being able and willing to take strike action gets results. So no, I do not believe that we'll get any real support from politicians. I think we will get support from other sectors of the working class who see that this is their fight as well. That if Teamsters lose, organizing Amazon will be infinitely harder. If Teamsters lose, organizing FedEx will be more difficult. And if we win, we can win for everyone.
I'll tell you what, there's a lot of workers who have organized over the last 2 years. They're not exactly fans of the Democratic or Republican Party. If there's a UPS strike, there could be a domino effect from that. So this is something to watch for, Colin, if you have the Gallup, that chart that I sent you. Americans' views of a need for a third major political party. As of September of last year, 56% polled said we need a third party. That's 56%. That was September of last year. You get a good candidate. You get two horrible candidates that, other than lice and the media, there's nothing more unpopular than Trump and Biden. Crazier things have happened. So, good segue to the next topic. One of those demographics who I think would be key and open to a third-party candidate are young people who are not, loyal to any party really, and have been basically steamrolled on healthcare, the climate, social justice, the economy, jobs, basically their entire adult lives. After the 2008 financial crash, then COVID, and now you are seeing and breathing the climate inferno, from the wildfires in Canada, obviously California, to the increased storms constantly happening at an insane pace. This is not sustainable, and we pretty much, according to the United Nations, are already past certain irreversible damage. That's why a new group, Climate Defiance, has been doing something really interesting, I think good and aggressive. They've just been shutting shit down. They are strategically finding speeches, interviews, fundraisers where they're just going and blocking people from speaking, the very politicians that are complicit in destroying planet Earth. Today, they basically shut down Chuck Schumer, a massive receiver of money from fossil fuckers. He was holding a fundraiser that they shut down. Let's show the video.
Off fossil fuels! Off fossil fuels, Schumer! Off fossil fuels! Hey, Schumer, get off it! Put people over profit! Stop fossil fuels, Schumer! Stop fossil gas! Stop fossil gas! Schumer, get off it! Put people over profit! Hey, Schumer!
Oh, my arm?
Just fighting.
You're on, baby. For what? How did you get in here?
Get off it! Put people over profit! Stop it! You have grandchildren? Yeah. You might be the house manager. I know. They already stop that. Stop that.
You're not going to live through the climate crisis. It's our generation that is going to live through the climate crisis. You cannot do this to us.
Get off it. Put people over profit. Stop saying you're fixing it while you're doing this. Schumer got $300,000 in donations from Next Era so that he would push the Mountain Valley Pipeline into the debt ceiling bill.
He rejected Senator Tim Kaine's amendment to strip it out of the debt ceiling deal, and then he dare say Buzz and Fraser, he stands there while he's telling us the Mountain Valley Pipeline will be the equivalent of 26 coal-fired power plants.
So you saw a lot of young people on one side and a lot of older folk on another. Joining me now, Teddy Ogborn with Climate Defiance. First, let me ask you, were you surprised? I mean, I'm not surprised, but were you surprised Schumer could have at least like pretended to want to hear you out? You know, sometimes politicians do that. He didn't even feign concern. He just walked out. What did you think of his reaction?
Well, here's the thing. When you're as direct as we are being, and listen, climate defiance, we're as direct action as you can get aside from putting your body in front of a bulldozer. You can't ignore what we're saying. You can't deflect. We're coming there with our facts, with our figures, our emotions, our voices, and we're motivated by living on planet Earth, wanting to have children ourselves. So yeah, he was speechless. I don't know why he was even surprised, though, because in the year 2023, when you are approving massive new fossil fuel projects, you should expect this, and he should have expected us.
So tell people if they're not familiar, because this isn't your first rodeo. You interrupted Manchin recently at an interview, some other politicians. Talk about this, what other events you've done and what the overall strategy is. Because obviously there's a Sunrise movement that was kind of dominating climate circles, I think has maybe taken a step back. But tell us a little bit more about the events you've done and what the reaction has been, because these folks, you know, are aristocrats and don't particularly like having their soirees blocked.
Yeah, nail on the head. Well, look, we're 3 months old and already we've had, I think now 16 direct disruptive actions where we go straight to literally the heads of state. I mean, this is the Senate Majority Leader that we just shut down today. They had to vacate the entire room and he was one of the first to leave. I recently got back from Michigan where the Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, was speaking at a press event just outside Detroit. And we coalesced en masse and we protested that. And she couldn't ignore us. She referenced us several times in her speech, attempting to deflect, but she could not because we were audible to everybody in that room. Shutting down Manchin, that was wonderful. I got to film that one. And it's really connecting with people, especially after the debt ceiling deal went through that was connected to the Mountain Valley Pipeline. So for viewers that maybe don't know, the Mountain Valley Pipeline is going to be built through Appalachia, primarily through West Virginia, actually Manchin's home state, where he supposedly represents. And it's going to be 89 million metric tons of climate polluting emissions per year produced by this thing. And it's already toxifying the land and affecting West Virginians that way. It's creating a sacrifice zone of his own state. So a lot of the focus has been on Manchin because for a while before the midterms, he was, you know, a swing vote in the Senate. That's not the case anymore. But now the focus, I think, importantly, has turned to the Senate Majority Leader because he has taken that, you know, our Democratic senator, from the stronghold of New York, Chuck Schumer, has taken 5 times the donations from Next Era, one of the primary stakeholders in the Mountain Valley Pipeline, 5 times than Manchin himself, right? So this is not someone who means what he says when he talks about climate change, right? We've shut down, like I said, Granholm. The White House Press Correspondents' Dinner was one of our huge launches. We couldn't be ignored there. We blockaded the entrance of it. Everybody inside knew we were there. So like I said, we cannot be ignored.
Is that the one where, who was the celebrity that walked by and kind of
I forget her name, but she plays Jerry in Succession, and and they had an interaction, and she's supportive, right? That's the thing, is we are getting the attention of both people that don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do before I joined the climate movement, and I had climate panic because I understood the facts. I understood what the future was going to be unless I acted. Now I know what to do, and we're showing people what you have to do, and we're connecting with people, you know, like Jerry from Succession, and also people in high places of power that, you know, whether it's because they're learning to understand the consequences directly from us or because they sympathize with us, they are learning to take action. And this is the new normal, what we're creating.
And let me add, I mean, I'm not going to blow up your spot. You don't have to give us any secrets of your strategy, but obviously it's not just about the direct donations from oil companies. The biggest investor in fossil fuels is Wall Street, and Chuck Schumer is swimming in Wall Street cash. The whole Democratic Party is. So are there plans for, you know, protests or actions specifically focused on Wall Street? Since, I mean, I remember when I was on the ground covering Dakota Access Pipeline, it was just a litany of banks funding that. Obviously, whether it's mining, Mountain Valley Pipeline, you know, Wall Street, hedge funds, private equity are some of the biggest backers in the fossil fuel company, and both parties are purchased by Wall Street.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's why it's so crucial that we um, are very direct on the political end of things, on the financial end of things, and on the grassroots frontline end of things. Because yeah, we need to have a far spread across the movement to address all these things. You know, I'm based here in New York City, so of course, even before climate defiance, you know, came into existence 3 months ago. I was targeting Wall Street quite a lot. In fact, when the Willow Project was approved, this is a massive new extraction project from ConocoPhillips that was approved on federal lands in northern Alaska. We went straight to yeah, the New York Stock Exchange where they were having their annual group meeting. ConocoPhillips was, and we were there every step of the way. Now, yes, we would have loved to get inside that building, but that is what we're learning to do. As you can see from that video, it takes 12 people. You get right inside, you shut shit down, like you said, and you make your point. I mean, not a lot of people can have essentially a captive audience of these wealthy donors, minimum $3,300 suggested donation for this thing, and the Senate Majority Leader. But we did because we have the tenacity and we know that we have the need to do that.
And let me ask you, not specific to your group, but I've kind of been voicing criticism overall because as a journalist, I've been covering protests for 8 years now. And at a certain point, marching around the same blocks, chanting the same things, I mean, it's cool, it's good, but they'll let you protest. But if everybody just goes home, you know, it's kind of just, all right, they'll grant you your protest. If you get a little too rowdy, they'll use the police to crack your skulls in. But I always said, imagine if even 1/10 of the millions of protesters that were out for George Floyd, imagine if 1/10 took economic action, you know, targeted boycotts, whether it's big corporate banks, big box retailers, you know, grocery, whatever it is. It seems to me we've been protesting, but folks haven't really been organizing any economic threats. Has your group talked about that? Obviously, it's great to just visibly be shutting these events down, but is there any plans to try and organize some economic threats? Easier said than done. We're not going to have a general strike tomorrow, but maybe we could start small.
Yeah, listen, that would be an incredibly powerful thing to do. And I think, like you identified, you know, there is a critical mass that you have to reach, even if it's just that 1/10 of the George Floyd protesters, right? That we need to reach to accomplish something to that degree. What we're finding in the climate movement and the environmental justice movement, unfortunately, is despite all of our efforts, all of our marching throughout the years, we haven't hit that mark yet. And we need to be waking people up to the reality of the situation they're in and the reality of the people that are supposedly their representatives. So we're in the phase now of awakening people to that reality. And what we're doing, I think, is really connecting and activating people. I mean, that video that you showed within 3 hours, it has 100K views. We ended up with 1.6 million and counting for the mansion video. I mean, people are really waking up and seeing like, oh, this is possible. Young people are leading this change and we need to support them. So, you know, we're on a fast track to doing something like that.
Have you seen a boost? I mean, it's unfortunate that it would take this, but have you seen a boost since a lot of people on the East Coast for the first time were just inhaling smog and smoke for days and days and days? I mean, I have a 7-month-old. We didn't go outside for days. Have you seen more interest among people who are not diehard into politics or climate, you know, folks, more interest in people that are now like, wait a minute, shit's getting serious here and might be interested in your cause?
Thanks so much for bringing that up. Yeah, so just 2 weeks ago, the smoke, the smog from those record-breaking Canadian forest fires, which are of course induced by climate change, reached New York City, and we had the worst air quality in the world for about 2 days, and so did Washington D.C. in the world. And it really did wake people up. I mean, you know, first of all, as someone who was already an activist, I felt fired up. I was like, this is the physical evidence. You can't deny this. And anecdotally, like shortly after that, you know, someone reached out to me who actually took part in today's action at Schumer's fundraiser, who said, listen, like this smoke was the last straw for me. I need to get involved. I see what you guys are doing on Twitter. I love it. Like, I want to be a part of this. This is so direct and effective. So yeah, I mean, I think it really is waking people up to that reality, and you can't deny it. I mean, some people say that delay is the new denial on the right wing, but also clearly right on the conservative left, as I like to call it. So yeah, I mean, it's truly their tactic is to simply delay and profit as long as possible until, you know, that money is actually meaningless, right? But they don't care about that.
And last question, not trying to get you in trouble, but it has to be asked. What happened to AOC and all these climate progressives? Remember, she was outside Nancy Pelosi's office her first day on the job. I see tweets. I see a lot of progressives in Congress kind of spun the Inflation Reduction Act as some historic climate thing. I mean, I personally don't think tax incentives for green energy are going to save us. It's better than nothing, but that would have been nice 15 years ago, in my opinion. I don't think that's what we need. As a young person, as an activist, are we getting enough support from the very progressives who ran on things like a Green New Deal, aggressive climate action? Or are we getting the support we need?
Yeah, look, it's important to celebrate when that support is trickling through. And it's just as important, if not more so, to be extremely critical and fierce and relentless when it's not there and it should be, right? So when people who do say one thing about climate, whether that is Schumer, clearly a lie, he's totally bought out, or it is AOC, and they're not acting on it in the ways that we should, we are going to be there. Now, for example, today, right, at the fundraiser, it was to benefit Senators Bob Casey and Tammy Baldwin. Now, Tammy Baldwin actually did vote against the MVP, voted for an amendment that would remove it from the debt ceiling bill. Well, regardless, we were there, right? Because in participating in this fundraiser, she's complicit, right? Her values are there in the vote, and that's great. And we recognize that when we're talking to the press. And it needs to be celebrated. And yet we shut her shit down too, right? So, you know, those distinctions, it's like you said earlier, you know, young people aren't necessarily loyal to one party. What they're loyal to is the ground that they walk on. They're loyal to their friends and their family, the air that they breathe. And that's what we need to see. So we're loyal to decisions that work, not people.
And tell people watching, if they want to get involved or just want to support you, how can they learn more about Climate Defiance?
Yeah, pop onto climatedefiance.org. There you'll learn a little bit about like our values, our mission. You can sign right on up. We're on Twitter, of course, I mentioned a few times. That's where we've been kind of blowing up at Climate Defiance. Yeah, if you're in New York, especially, I'll see you, you know, inside and outside.
But you could promise the people you won't become another climate group co-opted to then do pom-poms when Biden offers tax incentives. We don't need more of that.
It is baked into our DNA. Like we are going to disrupt until either we destroy this crisis or it destroys us. That's the reality that we're in.
I like it. And killer mustache, by the way. All right. Thank you, sir. Teddy,
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Everybody check out climatedefiance.org. Great segue to another 10-year inferno almost. Thank you, Teddy. Flint, Michigan. Anybody else covering Flint, Michigan? You know, the water's still poison. And by the way, I love these motherfuckers on Twitter. Actually, let me ask Melissa about this. Joining us, Melissa Mays. What day of the Flint water crisis is this? You're muted. Nope. There you go.
3,550. Yeah, I had to be muted because I was cussing listening to the Teddy talk because, because who cares about the air, right? And I saw Chicago and then over Grand Rapids in Michigan had the worst air quality in the nation today. So we're all, you know, working together to die. So yeah, today on Twitter, man, after spending this week fighting for affordable water, blocking water shutoffs, trying to get my clients' kids into some kind of support system to deal with the behavioral issues, the learning disabilities, the all the things that are thrown in our path. I get told today that I have no idea what I'm talking about. I get called Missy, which let me just say, you do not call me that unless you are my dead mother. And that's it. But, you know, being said, little Missy, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, is this for real? I thought we were past that. But apparently we've gone back to 2014 and 15. That seems to be the theme, is going back in time and not, you know, just making America just awful again, but also making the victims and the fighters and the people that are trying to do good for this world, for everyone, to suffer through it all over again. And just to be like, hey, you know what? What we're going to do is we're going to tell you that you're lying about your water being poisoned, even though you have all the science and facts and laws, you know, everything behind you. And we're going to use the facts that the state of Michigan, one of the responsible parties, is putting out. We're going to use their propaganda to say, hey, quit lying, you person who wants attention for being poisoned to protect yourself, your community, and us too. And then they're like talking about the Biden's infrastructure plan. I'm like, none of that would be happening if it wasn't for Flint residents fighting for you, and everybody else. Obviously, we're fighting for our infrastructure to be replaced because Friday I get to go to court again because yet the city and state are sitting here letting our infrastructure rot in the ground and letting the water.
Let's talk about that. Headline: hearing scheduled in case over Flint lead pipe replacement. A hearing will happen this week on the ongoing court case over lead pipes in Flint. Federal judge gave the city until August 1st to finish the removal and replacement of pipes because 6 years hasn't been enough. They needed an extension till August. The city has already missed multiple deadlines. In May, Mayor Sheldon Neely, who is embroiled in all sorts of corruption there in Flint, totally unrelated to the water, said nearly 1,100 households were left, which is a lie. 275 agreed to replacement and 93 said no. Hundreds did not respond. The hearing is set for 9 a.m. So, Melissa, for people that don't know, you were the lead plaintiff in a historic settlement in 2017. The then governor, Rick Snyder, who presided over your poisoning, you had to drag him kicking and screaming because they wouldn't just pay for the replacement of the damaged pipes. So you won almost $100 million to go towards lead pipe replacement. And there were specific rules and things they needed to follow in that settlement. And basically both administrations have blown off multiple times, including Democrats, Republicans, the city, the state. But is it accurate to say all the pipes could have been replaced there within a year if they would have brought in the union plumbers that offered to do it basically for free?
Yes, the union plumbers said we can reach out across our network and we can have every bit, not just the service lines, because mind you, again, in Flint, it wasn't just our lead service lines getting old that people told me today that's all that it was. My brain's dead, and it's not even from the poisoning; it's people. But they basically all of our infrastructure going from the water treatment plant all the way through the distribution mains in the street, the service lines that connect the distribution mains to the homes, and then our interior plumbing, appliances, and fixtures all were destroyed and damaged and corroded by this corrosive water they switched us to and then refused to treat. So all of it got eaten up. So you could, at this time, put the best water on Earth or in space, whatever, through these pipes, but they're going to continue to contaminate this water. So here's where we are. We had to fight and go to court for 18 months to get to a settlement, which meant the city, the state, the EPA, and the plaintiffs, myself, the Natural Resources Defense Council, ACLU of Michigan, and Concerned Pastors for Social Action all agreed on several things. But the biggest thing is replacing the service lines because our antiquated laws only cover the service lines. They don't cover the mains or the interior plumbing. So, okay,
the service lines go from the curb into your home. So they're not the damaged pipes inside your home, which they're not giving you any money for. They're not the main pipes that go underneath the street that have been bursting for years in Flint. So it's only really one out of the three sets of pipes that they have offered money for, not offered, were forced to pay for. And it's taken them 6.5 years and they still haven't finished it.
And part of that agreement, part of that settlement agreement, which all parties had to go in front of the federal judge and say, we've all agreed to do this, it was supposed to be finished by 2020, January of 2020. Now, there were bumps in the road at the beginning because, one, the state was trying to get out of it from the beginning. They didn't want to go through with the community education and hiring Flint residents to go door to door to make sure the filters were installed and that people had bottled water and information. They didn't want to keep the water pods, which was the point of distribution sites where people could go pick up bottled water for free. They didn't want to keep them open, and they closed them in 2018 anyway. So there was a lot of fighting there. But then along the lines of trying to locate all the lead service lines and galvanized steel, because we were able to prove, thanks to the union plumbers, that galvanized steel trapped and released more lead than lead pipes, because lead pipes, when they corrode, they Swiss cheese, so there's holes. But then galvanized steel pipes, what they'll do is they'll be like rocky on the inside when they corrode. So they're trapping, and then if a heavy truck runs over or a main breaks or weather changes, it can release a ton of contaminants. So not just lead as well. That's one of the major things we're talking about, because it's one of the few things the law covers, but we're not talking about the fact that hundreds have died from Legionnaires and misdiagnosed bacterial pneumonia. We have lots of cancers happening due to the carcinogens from the disinfection byproducts, because when you have pipes rupturing, like the distribution mains rupturing, it's letting out all the good treatment chemicals like chlorine that would, at a proper level, kill the bacteria, and it's allowing the bacteria to thrive. So instead of replacing these rupturing holy pipes, they're just dumping more chemicals in. And I don't know if you know, what does not fix the chemical problem is more chemicals. That's proven in Flint. So it's made the infrastructure worse. It's made the water quality completely unstable and worse. The lead levels have gone up. Bacterial levels are terrible. The smell, it's all still there, still this same 9-year nightmare. And people are still getting sick. So they keep pushing in more chlorine to try to catch up to all the bacteria. And yeah, it's causing carcinogens. So, total trimethanes, which are disinfection byproducts. So too much chlorine.
And we also know, we won't name names, we also know that there were cases of Legionnaires. I mean, not 8 years ago, we're talking 2 years ago, last summer. And the city did not notify the public. In one case, we know someone that was told not to drink the water, but they didn't tell their neighbors not to drink the water. You have a system of pipes. What is it? 600 miles long, that was built for Flint when it was at a population over 200,000 people. Flint is now between 80 and 90,000 people. It's the same system, with a lot of abandoned homes. So you have water that's super stagnant throughout certain sections of the city, and obviously you lose the chlorine in the water that treats the bacteria if the water's not moving. And then you add into the fact that it seems the current mayor is trying to swindle you, the citizens of Flint, into joining a brand new water system.
Yeah, we instead of finishing the service line replacement, the lawsuit that was supposed to be finished, he was in office in 2020. He put a stop to it, but yet started working on getting us on a privatized pipeline. And he sits as treasurer on the board of this privatized pipeline. I'm not sure how that's okay in any way, shape, or form. And he's trying to, he decided to experiment with our water and start blending our water. Didn't tell people, so I found out by accident. And we threw this huge mess, made them test the water, and now it's showing our water's gotten worse since they started blending these two water sources, because that's just stupid. It's just stupid. They didn't test it beforehand. And why are you experimenting with water that's flowing through a very delicate, already damaged, crumbling infrastructure before you even replace the pipe? It's ignorant, it's dangerous, and here we are, public health being ignored once again for politics and profit. So, so then now we just found out that tens of millions of dollars in ARPA funds went to build an additional water tower. Now, ours is shut off right now. Our Flint water tower, the one that you see in all the photos, it's shut off, meaning we have an issue with water pressure and treatment. And they're saying they're testing it for bacteria, which they're not telling anybody, hey, if it's in the water tower, it's probably in your water. My God. So
the current Flint water tower is offline, right, and they're testing it for bacteria, yet they're telling you it's fine to drink the water.
Oh, yeah, absolutely fine. The mayor, actually, in front of my attorneys, said at a summit that people should use filters for comfort. First of all, nobody's using filters for comfort. Second of all, no, people are using filters to try to filter out the heavy metals that are being stirred up from the collapsing infrastructure, the unstable water, and also, the blending experiment that is stirring all this up. So that's horrific. And then now all this money that could go to replacing actual distribution mains and interior plumbing and water heaters and fixtures, all of these things, is going to build another water tower instead of upgrading ours, another water tower for this privatized pipeline that we're paying for. So Flint still has the highest bills in the United States, because we are paying for two water systems. We're paying for Flint and being on Detroit, which is what we fought to stay on. And now we're paying for our blended secondary source, which nobody else in the country has, For what reason, I don't know, because no one else in the state has it either. Yeah, we're paying for this pipeline that, remember, they keep saying Flint is broke and boo-hoo, boo-hoo, but where did we get the $300 million to pay for this? Oh, yeah.
Let me just read this. Genesee County, which Flint is the biggest part of Genesee County, gets water capacity boost with Leaning Tower of Pisa sized tower. You got to love how this is written. No shock. It's written by state propagandist Ron Fonger. Genesee County's newest water storage tower has been put into service. A 170 feet tall sky blue tank that officials say will improve water pressure and help satisfy peak demand in the system that serves 22 community water systems, blah, 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 blah. The $5.3 million project, boosted with $2 million from the American Rescue Plan, sits on a 44-foot diameter. So the important part of this and why it's a major boondoggle is because for people that, I've said this repeatedly, covering this over the years, Flint didn't have a water issue, here and there, but not a poison issue. They got their water from Detroit for 50 years without a problem. But the greedy local officials, the banks that helped them scam Flint out of money with fraudulent bonds, built a brand new water pipeline running along the same exact path. Unheard of. The same exact path as the existing Detroit to Flint pipeline. That was called the KWA pipeline. But the problem is the KWA pipeline never had enough water to serve all the communities it was serving and Flint. It wasn't built big enough to have enough water. So at the times, you could explain it better than I, but at the times that they had Flint in the recent year or two temporarily switched to KWA, you haven't had enough water. So I think that building this new tower is really just a boondoggle to officially put Flint on this KWA water pipeline. And they want to do that so that they could charge you more so that they could pay off these bonds.
Absolutely. So we're paying for this bond debt for this pipeline that we didn't want to begin with. We said was unnecessary. Experts said was unnecessary. And that it's estimated that if we go 100% on this untreated, let me just say also that the water isn't treated at the source when it's pulled out. Detroit's water is. They have this massive high-tech water treatment plant. They pull the water from Lake Huron, they treat it, and they send it off clean to communities. Well, this pipeline is untreated. It does not have a covered basin, meaning there's no cover over it when it's drawing water in. And instead of being several miles out, it's not too far out from the shore, meaning gross, more shallow water, to save money. And it's coming in untreated, being piped 70 miles untreated. And it's supposed to go to our antiquated water treatment plant that wasn't even good enough to be a backup plant. And that's what Flint was going to get, because DTE for fracking and General Motors for their car parts, and Mott Farms for their sugar beets, they don't want to spend the extra money to take chlorine and treatment chemicals out of the water to use it. They want raw water. So the water is not for us, it's for industry. But we're getting that as a byproduct. We're getting untreated water at a higher cost going to our antiquated water treatment plant that couldn't treat anything to begin with. And and then it's being pumped. This experimental fluctuating mess of an experimental water is being pumped through our already delicate, corroded, crumbling infrastructure. And we're supposed to just sip it up and be happy with it. No.
And also something that infuriates me, and I don't even live there. Can you comment on, it's not a lot, but occasionally we see these idiots on Twitter saying Flint has had clean water for 5 years and they just regurgitate EPA stats. Hey, fuckers, did you just watch the Norfolk Southern NTSB hearing where the manufacturer of the chemical company said, yeah, we told Norfolk Southern repeatedly they did not have to detonate the cars with vinyl chloride? And the EPA has been going along with this story that there's an emergency. So if the EPA is lying in Ohio, why the hell do you think they're telling the truth that Flint's water is clean? You trust the EPA in the city of Flint more than the residents telling you? What are you telling us?
So, yeah, basically, I got told that the Flint water crisis and our crumbling infrastructure are not the same thing. I don't understand that one. Then I got told that I should shut up that Flint's had clean water since 2016 before a single pipe was removed. I'm like, wow, that's amazing, because we were still fighting to get them to admit there was a problem in 2016. But they were using the state of Michigan information and the city of Flint. I'm like, those are the responsible parties. So the city of Flint and state of Michigan did this to us. And then the EPA sit back and did nothing when we begged for their help. And that's what you're going to put. And even though they're putting stuff from like 2017, 2018, but none of them can agree on a timeline. And they're telling me, I don't know what I'm doing, and I must be testing my water in a meth lab. Now, again, I don't know what equipment meth labs use, but hey, if they've got the same kind of instruments that will test our water, whatever, man, as long as it's not corrupt. And as long as it's not, run and paid for by the people that are poisoning us. Because do you think that the guilty and the responsible are going to be saying, yeah, we totally did this and we're totally guilty? Yeah, the water's bad. No, they're going to tell you the same thing. They spent more money on PR than they have replacing our infrastructure. And they spent more money fighting us in court and losing, by the way, and losing. That, so it just blows my mind. And then people are telling me, I don't know what I'm talking about, and that I need medical attention. I'm like, oh, believe me, I got a
And these people obviously live in Flint, right?
Oh yeah, no, not a single one, not a single one. But this one guy, and they're trying to make it political, and that's the problem. They're like, no, Biden's infrastructure plan is. I'm like, first of all, that infrastructure plan wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Flint. Second of all, our expletive mayor didn't even apply to get any funds from it, so we're not even getting a penny from the infrastructure plan in Flint. And I'm like, oh my God. But then also, we're still not fixed. We are still not fixed. So they're like, no, the Democrats didn't, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, the Republicans did. I'm like, let me just tell you this. First of all, the Republicans did this to us. The Democrats allowed it to happen, and they're allowing it to continue. Nobody is doing anything on either side. But at the end of the day, when you make this a partisan issue instead of a human issue, which is what it is, everybody gets away scot-free except for the victims, except for the people that are being poisoned. This is a human issue. And then someone told me that me interviewing with you is just giving into ideological propaganda. I'm like, when did access to clean, safe, affordable drinking water and sanitation become some kind of ideological propaganda? We failed as a human race, if that's what it is. And like, how can somebody can type that and be like, yeah, I got that poison woman, I got her good. And I'm like, you're a monster.
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting, considering I won't get into details. I have been attacked by the former Republican governors, ghouls. I have been attacked by the former Republican governor's henchmen. I could say more, but I won't. And I've also been attacked by the current Democratic Attorney General of the state of Michigan. So if it's ideological, it seems that both sides kind of hate me. Not to pat myself on the shoulder, they hate me because I'm the only one trying to put them in prison. I'm the only one actually investigating what both of them did. This is not ideological for me because water is not red or blue. It's kind of should be clear. And even if it's clear, it could still have lead. So, this isn't an ideological thing. And it really pisses me off when people who don't live there, just common sense. Why would the residents be lying that the water is still bad? Like, what incentive do you have to lie that the water is still bad? Wouldn't you just kind of, from a human decency perspective, kind of want to give the benefit of the doubt to the people living there to say how the water is now?
I wouldn't be talking to these, idiots on social media and telling them our water's bad if we didn't still need to be fixed in Flint. And if I wasn't worried they were going to end up just like Flint. I would be taking a bubble bath in my perfectly fine water with my perfectly non-corroded infrastructure and faucets. I would be sitting in that bathtub nonstop. I miss a bubble bath. Oh my God, not to sound like a girly person, but you know how nice that is. And you take that for granted when it's been years since you've had one, because women who did take baths ended up having a lot of bladder cancers, gynecological cancers. And it's just, it's like, I guess, an ideological propaganda that I want to take a bubble bath, and not get sick if I could have that happen and not have rashes break out where it's going to be the most painful. But the thing is that if they continue to allow the guilty to get away with this and sweep Flint under the rug and act like everything is fine so they don't finish, and, if we don't get it done right, this is going to continue to happen to everybody. I mean, the infrastructure bill, the pipes are going to be replaced wrong. Like, do people even realize that there's not even a mechanic put in place to pay union plumbers, to pay the proper people to replace these service lines, and to make sure that the proper technique is done to protect the residents? My God, what is going on? And, the fact of the matter is that, yeah, we've been fighting for, I started, what are you fighting for in what? January 2015. And it's 112 years. My youngest, his birthday's Thursday. He's spent over half of his life poisoned and been dealing with this. And I'm not doing this because I want to run away from my children. There's more fun things I'd rather do. We're doing this. Flint is fighting because we're not fixed yet. Okay. Over 9 years into this, we're still not fixed. And neither is the rest of the country, because there's 37 states that have a form of emergency management on the books. So they could, the state could take control over their city like ours was done. And our protective laws have been attacked by politicians for so long that they are outdated. They have not been updated since the 90s, and it's not moving in the right direction. If our water was fine, and if there was no concern for the rest of the country to end up like Flint, I would not be spending all this time sitting on these panels and trying to get these laws changed properly, trying to make sure that directly impacted communities are on the front lines of all of this, not just in the fight, but in the solution. Because that continues to happen. Decisions made about us, without us, are going to fail, because that's how we got here in the first place. So I wouldn't be dragging poison folks like myself all around this country to get in front of lawmakers and demand that they do right by us and their own constituents. And so it just blows my mind why people are like, hey, this person, must have nothing else in the world to do. No, I'm sitting here waiting in a doctor's office for yet another appointment. I go to the endocrinologist tomorrow to figure out why I've got adrenal insufficiency magically now. It's awesome. I love taking all these pills. I've got nothing else in my life to do besides sit here and listen to idiots talk about how I don't know what I'm talking about. And I do believe a part of it, no offense to anybody, is because I'm a woman. But my Lord, it doesn't even seem to matter. If you're calling a poisoned mother who's trying to help you two names, you got the problem. But also, it's the whole
and to be specific, I was just there in April for the 9-year anniversary. There's not one person I spoke with that didn't tell me there's problems with the water. All the residents. People were saying they're still getting rashes. People were telling me when they shower, their eyes burn. People were telling me they're getting asthma attacks somehow. People were telling me it still smells. This is not like anecdotal. These are the residents. So don't tell people who live there it's all in your head. I wanted to ask you, because I've been saying since I've been covering this, the reason I'm so passionate about this is if there's no accountability here, this is the playbook for how government officials, corporate America gets away with it elsewhere. And I think we're seeing that playbook elsewhere. East Palestine. I mean, literally, they just nuked a town. There's nothing's happening. Yeah. They just nuked this town. As far as I know, we're the only ones still covering it at any degree. And nothing's being done. There's no criminal charges. The EPA is doing the same bullshit they did in Flint. Everything's fine. The air, the water, the soil, our testing is fine. Meanwhile, talking to residents, dizziness, nausea, burning eyes, sore throat, sinus infections. Women are having delayed menstrual cycles. I've spoken with residents who are having bleeding in their rectum. Other things I won't even say on the internet right now. Kalamazoo, something's going on in Michigan, by the way, ranked 49th, I believe, in corruption among the states. Your wonderful governor, who the New York Times and Washington Post have given journalistic blowjobs to, excuse my French, helped a paper mill expand that your health department knew was poisoning the poor black neighborhood in Kalamazoo. The health department, after 3 years of dragging their feet, the same health department that covered up the Flint water crisis, the health department just finally said, oh, yeah, our data shows that paper mills releasing hazardous levels of hydrogen sulfide. What are we going to do about it? Just stay in your house if it smells. That's what they told residents.
But during the same time, they had our annual water infrastructure conference in Kalamazoo. And no, Jordan, I did not go. I listened.
There you go. Good.
Kalamazoo, I'm like, let's talk about water quality instead of the air that right outside is poisoning folks.
Right. So it's just truly, I think other cities, same state in this case, but other states and others, I think the government officials say, well, let's just do what they did in Flint. Put out some good PR. In Flint, they gave some filters for it. In East Palestine, Norfolk Southern paying for fares and giving donations to the city. In Kalamazoo, we'll have meetings. We'll pretend we're doing something. But there's no criminal consequences. If anything, Norfolk Southern will pay a record fine that in the grand scheme will be pennies. So isn't there something to Flint with no accountability, with no justice, has left a playbook for other government officials and corporations how to get away with murder.
I just want to address Dennis. Dennis saying that, no offense, but if he saw his family, that right there. Yeah. So I don't know if you followed along a lot. There is not one place in this country that I would move to that is not already on the path to becoming Flint or East Palestine or Kalamazoo. But because our country is run by corporations who profit off of poisoning and don't want to spend the money to stop and to, help the people, and no one's being held accountable in Flint or East Palestine or Milwaukee or, East Chicago, Indiana, or if you go through the list, that is why we don't move. We don't know where we'd move to. And let me just say to everybody, I'm not trying to fear monger, but you should probably check your laws. You should probably check into that testing for your air, soil, and water. Flint's poison community, and they just put an Ajax plant, which is putting all the hydrogen and everything out there, all the PM 2.5, the nightmare things that are going to cause air damage. So we're also getting, and not just the forest fires from Canada. We get a lot of the pollution. There is a nuclear power plant across the way. So that's another reason why we don't collect rainwater, because a lot of it rushes down to us. We are not in a place where I could say, let me sell my toxic water house with the plumbing that's leaking. And
I was about to say, Dennis, you want to make her an offer where she could break even on what she paid for the house? Who the heck? All these people's home values have went down into the toilet. They can't just move because they're going to lose half of their money on what they bought their house for. Not to mention, it's very expensive to move.
And with destroy our credits, we can't move anywhere else. Where I grew up, actually in one of the towns where I grew up, I lost another parental figure from cancer. Their water's been contaminated. They just found out they had to change reservoirs where they get their water. Small town, southern Indiana. So here's the thing. If we move, and a lot of people have, and there's nothing against that. A really good friend of mine, she moved her family to Corpus Christi, Texas. Corpus Christi, Texas is where they manufacture the bottles for the bottled water that we need. She got poisoned all over again by different contaminants from the plastics factory. So if we stay and fight, then we can make change. And we have made change. You hear me complain all the time about the things that aren't done. We have exactly what he had said before. We have to hold on to the wins, but not just saying, okay, yeah, we won this, we won that. We've changed the laws here and there to make the world a little less awful for everybody else. But these things still need to be done because it's still not good enough, okay? So we have made major wins. Flint is the reason there's an infrastructure bill. Flint's the reason why, people are actually testing for lead in their water and looking at disinfection byproducts and everything. So, all right. But in my family, we've already been poisoned. The toxins are in our body. The damage has been done. And not to sound fatalist, but that's what we've got. I don't want to get treatment, figure out how to use the filtration systems and how to use this and that and what needs to be done to protect myself and my family, uproot us, move us to another community, and get poisoned by a whole other set of toxins. I'll stick here and fight the devil, I know. But if we lose
Dennis, Dennis, I'm sure you mean well, but I don't think you really get it. And I can tell you from the people I'm talking to in East Palestine, but also Flint, it's not like a choice. They don't have the money to move unless you're just saying, well, go be homeless. Flint has an over 40% poverty rate. East Palestine is poor too. So it's not as simple as, well, if it's my children, I would get them out of there. No excuses. I mean, you need to have the income to do that. And moving can cost you anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000 there. Not to mention, contrary to the bullshit you're hearing from politicians, it's not so easy to go get a job somewhere else. So it's not as simple as just move. And also, why should they have to move? The government should make these people as whole as possible. They're never going to be made whole because they have permanent damage. But some of these people are Flintstones, for better or worse. Their family is there. It's part of their identity that this is where they're from. They love their hometown, and they shouldn't have to move if they don't want to. My last question.
We also have I was going to say, we also have care teams and doctors and schools that are now testing, and we're actually getting help here if I move to another school district, I'm not gonna be able to help my kids. They're gonna brush it off as my kids have ODD, oppositional defiance disorder, or that they're lazy, or not the fact that, you know, they actually have impairments caused by the water. So we are fighting to protect her. And it's not like I'm handing my kids tap water to let them drink. We don't do that. But yeah, no. So, and it's a lot easier to say when it's not happening to you. That's another thing too, is that it's a lot easier to say, well, if this was me, I would. You don't know what you would do. I didn't know what I would do until it happened to me. And so this is the life that we're living, but we're doing it so I can have a better life for my kids in the future, instead of running and hiding to another poison community and allowing this to happen to them all over again. And I know you only have good intentions, Dennis, and I appreciate you very much. And I know this is horrific because you're probably a really good person that's like, oh my God, this is happening. But then you have to realize it's happening everywhere. And I'm not saying that just to be, you know, like I said, a fear monger or scary. It's just that since 2015, we've been helping communities all across North America. And yeah, unfortunately, it's not just us in Flint. And
as you and I have talked about, there's a reason Wall Street traders and hedge funders, some of the top commodities they've been buying over the last few years is water. Why do you think so? Because they know there might be a shortage of clean water. I think the next world war could be over water, not oil, based on. So my last question, I put in a Freedom of Information request with your prestigious Attorney General there. I won't say what I asked for, but I asked for some certain documents. And I was not surprised by the response, but I was told, we can't give you these documents because there's still an active investigation going on. So I looked on the Court of Appeals for the state of Michigan website. I looked on the Michigan Supreme Court website, and I, for the hell of me, can't see what is active in the criminal investigation, because the Supreme Court tossed out the criminal charges the Attorney General charged last year, basically saying that the Attorney General and her crackpot team of amateurs charged state officials and city officials the wrong way and violated the state constitution by charging them through a one-man grand jury. That was a 6-0 decision. It wasn't partisan. Liberal and conservative judges ruled that they fucked up. So the state Supreme Court tossed them out, and then the Court of Appeals upheld that decision of the Supreme Court. And those charges that were tossed, the majority of them are over the statute of limitations. So I wrote back, what exactly is active about this investigation? And they gave me some canned answer. You could go and read our briefings, which I did. And I've asked lawyers in Michigan, am I missing something? What is active? And they tell me, fuck if they know.
No, there's nothing
active. You know what?
Maybe there's a potential that one of the defendants could maybe try to appeal their own charges being dismissed. Why would they do that? I mean, if that's what they're assuming, like, I guess the former DPW of Flint, Howard Croft, could go appeal the appellate court's decision to throw out his case because he was charged and his constitutional rights are violated. I'm not sure that somebody who just got away with having their criminal case charged due to the ineptitude of the Attorney General's office would go appeal that. I'm not sure, but yeah, as far as we in Flint know, and our lawyers, there's no active criminal cases. It's just called, they don't want you to have information. And that's okay. I'm not an attorney. So, let me just say that. I don't even play one on TV, but that's the only thing that makes sense because nobody's being charged. There's no open criminal cases. And it's the same thing they've been saying since Dana Nessel's team and Fadwa Hamoud's team tossed all of the active, moving towards trial cases in the garbage years ago. That, you know, we'll just have to follow the evidence and see where it leads us, right to the trash. Also statute of limitations, long gone.
You've unfortunately had to become a student of American history. Are you aware of any other environmental poisoning like this? Well, there is no other like this, but anything in the same ballpark that a decade later, like not even the janitor went to prison, not even a low lackey, I mean, I don't know of many situations where at least one sacrificial lamb did not go to prison. In this case, it's not looking hopeful that anyone's going to prison. And by the way, I, through my reporting, handed them on a platter the governor's henchman, Richard Baird. Some of the charges against the governor's top advisor was based on my reporting in Vice a few years ago, that he was going around offering payoffs to sick Flint residents. They didn't know about it, and I handed it to them, and they charged him for that. So then they fucked it up, and his charges were tossed. So I don't know of any situation where no one has been held accountable.
Well, there's a lot of cases. Actually, there's one really good case. There was a husband who put basically chemicals in his wife, like sleeping medication in his wife's coffee to try to poison her. She's fine. She got found out, and Dana Nessel, her team prosecuted him, and he got actually prosecuted, charged, convicted with trying to poison his wife. Now, there was some, they poisoned 100,000 residents. They switched our water knowing that it was bad. They refused to treat our water to make it less bad. Then they covered it up as people were dying by the hundreds and getting poisoned by the 100,000 of us. And not a single person.
I think dying by the thousands. I think thousands of people have died.
Absolutely. And well, here's the thing: we now have this cancer clusters here, but also we have a lot of people dying of heart attack, strokes, premature, kidney cancers, things like that. Like my cancer grew weird and almost exploded some organs. I guess I need. But yeah, and we're trying to get geneticists in here to actually explain what's going on with our DNA and how it got changed and altered by not just the lead, not just the heavy metals, not just the carcinogens from the disinfection byproducts, and not just the bacteria, but all of them together for all of these years. So this was done to us. It wasn't just Flint's pipes got old, like what's happening across the country. They switched our water to a completely inferior toxic source that was far more corrosive, 19 times to be exact. Then they refused to put anti-corrosive treatment chemicals in, and then they lied about it, and they hid it as people were dying and getting poisoned and forever altered, right? So, which made us prime for our 12.5% case fatality rate for COVID when it hit, because we have like no immune system. But now that aside, there's complete evidence. You have handed them repeatedly, not just about the bribery, repeated evidence to show they lied and cheated on the testing, still are, that they were flushing the evidence away, that they hid things, they lied about things. Former Governor Snyder lied to Congress, and yet his rear end is not held back in there. So we've repeatedly given him evidence. You've repeatedly shoved it down their throats. Look at this crime. There was a RICO case that had been started that went to the trash somewhere because they were profiting, including the banks and former Governor Snyder and his henchmen. We had people who were profiting off of our poisoning. And they outwardly used, they said that I should have known sooner. They said I had superior knowledge of the water, but they said that I should have known sooner that they were lying to us when I said their water was bad and they said that it wasn't. That I should have known sooner and I should have sued sooner. That was one of their defenses in the Michigan Supreme Court. It didn't work, but I mean, so they used their crime of lying to us outwardly in the open to defend themselves against our civil cases. So nobody's in jail. If I go poison one person, throw a little antifreeze or a little, I don't know, sleeping medication in somebody's coffee, even my husband's, good luck, bet you I'm going to go behind bars. Bet you I'm going to go behind bars for a very, very long time. But yet these officials whose suits cost thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, far more than, what the fines they were going to get, because former Governor Snyder is being charged with a misdemeanor, a misconduct in office for allowing people to die and lying about it. If it was me, you'd never see me again, and so, 100,000 people, their offspring, because again, my boys are going to be able to pass down their lead poisoning to 3 generations of boys. Women, we still have no clear answers about what happens to our eggs. We have this poison that's going to be passed down. And of course, our water's not better. We're still dealing with all this. The layered trauma and the disinvestment in humans and the people of Flint continually. We get to live with that forever, and not one single person sitting behind bars. So,
meanwhile, we get days and days of coverage of the missing submarine. On CNN and MSNBC. I'm sorry, people lost their lives. Tragic, even billionaires. But they made a choice to go on this Titanic sightseeing thing. And, 7 hours till they're out of oxygen, this and that. Meanwhile, for true journalists, this is the story of a lifetime. I mean, you got corruption, racism, environmental genocide, greed, Wall Street, all mixed into one fucking blender. And when's the last? I mean, I was the only national reporter that I know of at the 9-year anniversary, at the 8-year anniversary, at the 7-year anniversary. ever on the ground there. I'd rather not be. I'd love to be joined. I offer the Detroit Free Press, take my name off the story. I'll just give it to you. They don't want to cover it. I wonder why.
What's funny is that I sat here wondering what kind of a garbage human I would be if I could find a way to be like, well, they're talking about under the water. Maybe I can find a connection to get people to talk about our water because they're talking about the submarine that's underwater. And yeah, like my soul wouldn't let me do that. But I was like, I was like, we're talking about water. Can we do this? Can we talk about like our water that we didn't have a choice for, that we didn't make the choice to have our water switched and lied to and have our infrastructure destroyed?
Daily Beast, what was it, 5 years ago, asked me about the story where Jen and I knocked on 400 doors and proved that the state and Snyder were cheating on the water testing. They said, can you find a Trump angle? I said, no, I can't. This happened under the governor, Rick Snyder. Trump's not smart enough to even collaborate on this manipulation. And they didn't want to do the story. So you have major outlets knowingly hiding and helping cover up. Newsweek, remember, I was going to publish that with Newsweek. They killed it 2 days before it was supposed to be published.
Yep.
So
what if we had a rumor that Trump and former Governor Snyder were dressed in drag, reading a book of their crimes to kids in a library, but toting AR-15s and shooting lead bullets into our water, but also dumping contaminants in there with Putin? Do you think anybody cover it? Do you think that the national media?
If you throw in Stormy Daniels, probably.
Oh, cool. Yeah, okay. We can get her. I mean, she seems like a cool person. I'll just ask her and be like, look, I need your help. You know, like, we need your help. We need your help. You know, like Jordan's been, you know, Status been out there, all of our things and talking about all of this.
I can't even get an agent to respond to me. I can't even get a publisher. They told me I got an offer from one small publisher, no disrespect, but I'm holding out for a bigger one. And other agents said, your reporting is incredible, but I don't think there's a commercially viable market for the Flint water cover-up. So I said, is that a fancy way of saying you think nobody cares? And one said, I wouldn't put it that way, but yeah. So, and the truth is, people do care. They just don't know. People do care. Right. They just don't know. They think it's over because the media doesn't cover it anymore. It's outrageous.
The dangerous part about, you know, people are like, oh my God, you got all that media that had to have helped. I'm like, yeah, except when they disappeared. When they disappeared, everybody thought it was over. And they crowned the wrong people heroes, and they stole our narrative, and we're left over here being like, hey, we're doing all the work here, but also it's going to happen to everybody else. We need help, you know, getting this together on a national scale because, yeah, we're going to have droughts, and everybody's saying that Michigan, the state of Michigan, is going to be where people move to because of the water, the drought, and climate change and everything. I'm like, oh my God, I hope not, because y'all going to move here and be poisoned. But yeah, so it's trying to find an angle. I'm like, well, I mean, I don't have money for plastic surgery, but maybe that'll help. Like, but also cats, like, you know, like if I get cats and strippers and drag queens and Putin and Trump and whatever else, a submarine, and and we can say that the fight between the two edgelords are gonna, you know, happen here in Flint, like, you know, the Musk and the robot guy. the billionaires are fighting here, dressed in drag, drinking Flint water.
Well, I can't give you all that, but I will give you an early Christmas gift. Melissa, introducing to you our Poison States of America clothing line. And I will be sending, Colin, if we could put it up, I will be sending you and your husband and kids free T-shirts for all your hard work and helping Status Coup through all this. So got water. Colin, can we show these individually? You got your Got Water shirt with, I think Flint is on that cup, one other place. Then you got Poison States of America with some green muck. And then okay, here we go. So you got Poison States of America. Pick your color if you want pink or whatever. So that's one. Then you got, you know, a bit of a hippie version here, but what does that say? We got to fix the font. Colin's going to make the font bigger. What does that say, Colin?
What's in your water?
Oh, yeah. Nobody knows. That's a question I always ask. Be like, oh, you think your water's safe? When was the last time you had it independently tested? And also send me the results. I'd love to go over
I guess on the actual shirt you could read it. It's just hard to read it like on the computer from far away.
Yeah.
But what's in your water? And what's the other one?
The other one we got to add into the store still, but it's Got Water. That'll have the 2 different waters there and a list of all the different poison communities on the dark water.
Love it.
So this is pricey shirts, but we're gonna give it to you for free. You deserve it. For all you other fuckers, go to the store. Please give us some dollar bills. We need it. It's a little more expensive because all our stuff is sustainable and all that jazz. But statuscoup.com/store. I want people actually to wear it, not just because we need some extra revenue, but it's a conversation starter, and it needs to spread. People ask you about your shirt, and maybe you can inform more people. Oh no, the water everywhere is fucked, and you need to look into your water. So that's my hope. In addition to hopefully, we're independent and have no money from Norfolk Southern or Rick Snyder. So definitely for the viewers, go check out those shirts at the store. And Melissa, you and your familia can pick out the ones you want. But we're going to stay on this. And I'm working on getting this book out. And, I guess all we can do is keep trying.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. Dennis, thank you for allowing me to correct you and give you information. And yes, by the way, we tried putting our water bills in a escrow account. No judge would approve it, so everybody was going to in Flint and in the state of Michigan. If your water gets shut off, you can have your sewer capped, your home condemned, and they can actually attach your unpaid water bill to your property taxes. And they can 16,000 residents in Flint. Homeowners in Flint lost their homes due to tax liens because of unpaid water bills that are like right now we're in the $3,000 range. I paid $252 last month. Plus we have to buy our own bottled water, and I hate making bottled water companies rich, but no filters that I know of tackle everything. So, and I'm just not going to risk it. So, and thank you, Dennis, for saying, and everybody who shares our story. Thank you, everybody who hops on, especially when Jordan posts something and people are like, oh, that lady's lying. Or somebody was talking about my dining room table. I'm like, dude, does that even matter that we're at my dining room table? It's because I trust you and allow you in my house. But I guess my table wasn't poisoned enough.
What does your dining room table have to do with your water?
I can't put water on it because it was eating the
I think Dennis is a perfect example of where we need to get in this fucking country, where somebody, not with no ill intention, maybe had the wrong perception of something, but was willing to listen instead of being entrenched in their position. He listened, and now he says, oh, you know what? That makes sense. It isn't as easy. Instead of us all being assholes on Twitter and elsewhere, and we're right just because we're on team blue or team red or team whatever. No, listen to what the other person is saying. Don't just, have blinders on that you're right or whichever YouTuber you love or politician you love is 100% right. Look at things and listen to the people actually experiencing it. So props to you, Dennis. Thank you as always, Melissa. I appreciate it.
And the chat who helped educate. Like you guys, I see the comments and they go kind of quick. You guys are amazing, and I see nice things said about me. You guys are awesome. Don't think I miss it completely, but
and if you want more information, go to Flint Rising too. FlintRising.com.
Yep, FlintRising.com, and then also that's where we update other resident stories and everything. And then also you can follow me on Twitter at FlintGate because I'm a jerk. But also, no, I'm not on meth, and apparently somebody said I get paid to do interviews with you. So, yeah.
If you do, you're in the negative. Okay.
I know. I gotta. That, and I apparently I have to invoice George Soros, and I'm not sure where to send that invoice.
I also love when there's people out there saying I profited off of Flint. I'm like, please send me the check. I've been waiting for 8 years. I've lost a lot of money. We've lost a lot of money. Continue to go into Flint, but I never profited.
No.
So
I yelled at you a lot for trying to drink the water and just to see if it tasted bad. You got yelled at by me a lot.
My wife might be watching, so that she's anyway. Thank you, Melissa.
I got your back. Unless you're gonna do something dangerous and silly, because we can't lose you. Just so you know, the whole team, you guys are amazing.
Thank you. I'll be in touch.
All right.
And let's close it out with some super chats and public service announcements. Mike's $5. Thank you, Mike. Fly, jump, a fly, $2. 2024 seems best for third party. Voters want neither. Fly, jump, a fly, again, $2. Wow, same thing. Uses new pipeline to line pockets. You got it. You got it. And as a reminder, we're back on the road tomorrow. Tina will be back in Atlanta, Georgia, covering the fight against Cop City, the militarized police compound in the forest that's being built there. They are now in another week of actions against Cop City. So she'll be back out there with John Farina tomorrow. They'll be there, I think, through Sunday. And you never know. It could be peaceful and just good interviews, or shit could kind of go crazy and protests can get out of control. Last time she was there, things were kind of popping off. But thank you to the people who have donated. We made a page specifically to fundraise for this trip. So we really could use your help. These trips are expensive. Between John, Tina, food, flights, hotel, rent a car, you're talking $4,000 to $6,000 for this trip. So any amount really makes a difference. Our goal is to raise $6,000 for this trip. So far, I think we've raised less than 300. We just launched this yesterday. So we definitely need a couple big hitters to help us out, but also small donations help too. So definitely chip in to that fundraiser. The link to the fundraiser is in the description. It's statuscoup.com/trip funder. Yeah, trip funding. statuscoup.com/trip funding. I know Tina has been keeping in touch with activists down there, so she'll have great interviews to update you on what's going on there, because the fight is not at all over against Cop City. So she'll be down there. We'll be live for several days down there. And we also sold some of the shirts out of the Status Coup store. So definitely go to statuscoup.com/store if you want those Poison States of America shirts or Status Coup hats, beach towels, iPhone covers. We have sweatpants, T-shirts. You could get it in different colors. So help sport and pass the coup by rocking the coup. We'll probably be posting tonight an interview I did with a UPS worker on the potential and maybe even likely UPS strike coming up, which would be over 300,000 workers. So look out for that. Thank you for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.